Watch today's episode and learn how Andy from Shaffer's Entertainment, a 4-generation company, follows in his great-grandfather's footsteps with innovation to lead this company straight on to prepare for the 100-year anniversary. Today we have Andy Shaffer from Shaffer Entertainment, a generational business. I'm super excited because this is the first generational business we've had on the show. And not only is he a generational business, 4 generations deep, survived through all kinds of chaos and stuff throughout the years, right? So can you tell us a little bit about your business, Andy?
Yeah, Ken, thanks for having me. There's another important fact I'm very proud of. This is my very first podcast I've ever been a part of. So
oh, really?
I want to...
Will you save the best for first?
I'll never forget you.
Fantastic. Awesome. Glad to have you on the show. Very much appreciate it. If I seem a little out of wits, we had a bunch of technical difficulty right when we started. So we're through all that technical difficulty. We have Andy on. Andy's from Shaffer Entertainment. There's a couple different businesses in here, and started almost 100 years ago or over 100 years ago? Almost 100. So
1929. My great-grandfather owned a pharmacy in Columbus, Ohio. And the pharmacies back in the day were the cultural hubs of the neighborhood. That's where you went to get your candy. It's where you went to get your groceries. And obviously it's where you went to get your prescriptions as well. So a very vital part of the local economy was the pharmacy. And one day a salesman came walking in my great-grandfather's pharmacy and said, "Hey, Pops, I got this game I'd really like to put on your counter. And it's 5 shots for a penny. And I'll come back in a couple weeks and I'll split it with you." My great-grandfather goes, "Cool, yeah, let's give it a roll." So he puts this big, heavy, what looks like a mini pool table up on my great-grandfather's counter. It's got a little metal gun on one end of it, and it's shooting metal ball bearings into pockets. And there's plastic versions of this that our kids have all used over the years. And so again, it's 5 shots for a penny. And the guy comes back 2 weeks later, opens up the door, and pennies go spewing all over the counter. And
fantastic.
Just like we've all said probably a million times, man, I'm in the wrong business. My grandfather goes, "Holy cow, this is unbelievable. I'm in the wrong business," and proceeds to somehow talk my great-grandmother into selling the pharmacy business that he had owned, and decided to take those proceeds and invest it into a brand new technological toy called the jukebox. So this is 1929. It's the evolution of the jukebox, and my great-grandfather sinks everything he's got into buying jukeboxes and starting a little route similar to what you said you did as a vending customer back in your teens.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
That's how every one of these family businesses like ours across the United States almost inevitably started up. So it was right before the Depression. He was able to persevere during the Depression and came out on the other end of this thing. And 4 generations later, we've got two companies. I got a younger brother, Scott. My dad, Steve, is still alive, thank God, as our chairman. And we've got Shaffer Distributing Company, which was Shaffer Music, selling vending equipment, cold drinks, snack machines, video games, pool tables, jukeboxes, the types of redemption games that your kids like to play when you go to Chuck E. Cheese or you go to bowling alleys, movie theaters, etc. So they sell to people like me at Shaffer Entertainment. So I am a customer of Shaffer Distributing. We buy the equipment, put it into locations at no cost, and we share the revenues, just like the guy did back in 1929 with my great-grandfather. The same model.
So the two companies are they? Do you work for both companies, or are they totally separate management?
Great question. 2 separate corporations.
Right.
So my brother and my dad are over on the Shaffer Distributing side. I'm the president and day-to-day run Shaffer Entertainment in Indianapolis, Detroit, and Columbus.
So your brother gets to go, "Dad, Andy's picking on me." He gets to run to Dad. You don't get that.
Dinner conversations are kind of wacky, Ken, because I'm the older brother buying from the younger brother.
Right. It's constant negotiation at the dinner table, right? I'm sure that makes for a fantastic Thanksgiving.
Sunday night dinners are not as pleasant as they used to be.
I'm sure you guys figured out. So Now, I've never been able to do this, but you're only 7 years away from your centennial celebration, right? Is that something you start thinking about how to celebrate that now? Like that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I think we are still so focused on continuing to keep our heads above water and post-pandemic that do we want to celebrate with our customers and our employees? Absolutely. But I think right now our main focus is to continue to strengthen our foundation that got destroyed like most companies, a year and a half ago. So we haven't started thinking about that just yet. I think we're still in the recovery process, but 21 was good to us. I mean, the people that were able to come back to work and work for us, the brothers and the sisters and the moms and the dads that came back and trusted the Shaffer family that we're going to take care of them when they come back. That's something I'm never going to forget. It was
Fantastic.
unbelievable. The people that came back to work for us last spring are always etched in my soul. I'll never forget the people that trusted our family enough to come back and go to work for us.
Right. So normally I ask, the founder's story. What possessed you to start this business? But you're a generational business, so you went into the family business. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey and, from high school into college, and what was your thought process behind, hey, I know that Dad's got this business that he runs, and that's what he does, but as a teenager, you really don't know what your fate's going to be. You might not have, if you would have told me when I was a kid, hey, you're going to go in the same business as your dad, you're going to be a baker, I said, you're crazy. Right now, I might have loved it, I don't know, but I just wanted to do whatever my dad wasn't, for sure. So can you tell us a little bit about, your journey on how you came to the realization that, yes, this is the right move for me, I'm making an assumption that when you first started at Shaffer, you were technically an employee, not running the company at this point, right? So just give us a little bit of insight about how that happened and what your thought processes were during that time.
Well, like a lot of people in family businesses, I probably started taking out the trash and cleaning glass on pinballs when I was 12 or 13 years old.
Yeah.
So as I got through high school, I was fortunate to be recruited for golf and lacrosse, and I selected a school down in North Carolina that nobody from Columbus, Ohio had ever attended, called Elon College down in Burlington, North Carolina. It's now called Elon University. So I was fortunate to go down there. It was a total clean slate, Ken. I knew nobody in this entire school, Southern school. You got a Yankee coming from Columbus, Ohio down to a Southern school, and I didn't know anybody except the golf coach.
Right.
So,
in the 80s, which was a different...
Mid-80s,
totally different time. Yeah.
Right. So not only was I a skinny-ass freshman Yankee from Columbus, Ohio, that didn't have a car, because you're not allowed to have cars on campus your freshman year back then, I decided to not stay with the golf team. Instead, decided to play lacrosse, which was another detour that turned out to be one of the greatest decisions of my life, because I was able to meet so many guys in such a short amount of time. And that's kind of how I got through my probationary period, I guess, as being a Yankee down there.
Right.
I helped start, one of the things I'm most proud of is I helped start the founding father of the Sigma Chi fraternity at Elon. So there were 16 of us that came together. We had football players, we had golfers, we had surfers, we had guys that didn't give a rat's ass. We had guys that were just book smart, and out of those 16 guys, in an incredibly electric and fast amount of time, less than 2.5 years, we were able to colonize ourselves and get a chapter for Sigma Chi. So I'm forever proud of being a founding father of a fraternity that still exists down at Elon. But while you and I were talking a minute ago, I never ever took for granted that I had a family business sitting at home waiting on me. That was really probably my gasoline, Ken, that kept me going every single day. So not only was I a founder of a fraternity, played lacrosse for the men's team down at Elon, I was on student government, and I worked at the Sheridan as a banquet waiter in Greensboro, North Carolina. So I never ever took for granted that there was a family business sitting there. And lo and behold, my dad decides to do something back in 1988 that nobody in our entire the history of our coin op industry had ever been done before. Shaffer Distributing sells to what we call operators, okay? And I'm technically a coin operator, but we don't use coins that much anymore. And what my dad decided to do back in late of 1988 was take the number 1, number 2, and number 3 coin operators in Central Ohio and put them all together. So it ended up probably going with cigarette machines. The combination of those 3 companies probably came out to probably close to 500 in some locations around Central Ohio. And this was brand new. I mean, Shaffer Music, Shaffer Distributing, nobody had ever been in the route operating side of the business. And I graduated from Elon at the very end of 1989. I actually spent my last semester of school in London, England, taking my last 3 general credits. A lot of kids do those semester abroads when they're freshmen and sophomores. And so I did it. I wanted to end my entire career over in London. And ironically, I was over in London when the Berlin Wall went down too. So some really cool things happened to me, obviously, that you don't plan on. So I come back and I started at Shaffer Services at the time in January 3rd of 1990. And proudly, they started me at the rock bottom, man. I was wearing polyester, and I spent the next 3.5 years filling cigarette machines, action claws, learning how to change records and 45s off jukeboxes, and you name it. You know, a lot of cleaning too. You and I were talking about the smoking ban situation. That's one of the best things that's happened on the smoking ban is we don't have to clean the nicotine off the machines like we used to.
Yeah, and I want to get into the nicotine ban here in a minute, or I just call it prohibition, right? So, because you've been around for almost 100 years, you've been through the alcohol prohibition. The company's been, not you personally, but the company's been through an alcohol prohibition. You come and go. We've seen, the Great Depression, couple world wars, right?
Vietnam. Yep.
Couple wars that you've been through, the company survived through. And obviously, we have most recently the pandemic. The .com bust was a huge deal. And, we've also had the housing boom, the housing bust in 2008. So, and Shaffer Entertainment's been able to survive all of these things. And we were talking before this, and obviously, that you had a big downturn in business when the pandemic hit, right? Everybody did. But you took a specific hit that was probably unforeseen by a lot of people of the industries that the smoking prohibition or indoor smoking prohibition has caused, right? So can we talk, now you just gave a benefit of the smoking prohibition indoors, that you have, but you also took a pretty big hit on that, and that forced you guys to do a pivot, is that correct?
Yeah, we didn't just do a pivot. We were going to have to change the trajectory of our company. And as you just brought up, 16 years ago, the city of Columbus, ahead of the state of Ohio, decided to go non-smoking. I was extremely involved. I'm a non-smoker, always have been. But I felt like businesses deserved a choice. Legally, you could buy cigarettes at 18, and you could go to war at 18, but you couldn't smoke a cigarette inside a location. And I just felt philosophically there was something a little wrong with mom and pop businesses.
And the business owner didn't get a decision in that, right?
No, that's where I was heading. Is they had no way to counteract it. So
which laws being different could have been a competitive advantage from one bar to another, but the government dictates that we're not allowed to do that at all.
And that's what's ironic about what you just said. That's real. You and I have been connecting ever since we got on this Zoom call. There was an inequity when the city of Columbus came down through the health department, Ken. There are townships and other types of city and county lines, okay? So there's a home rule in the state of Ohio. So when the Columbus Department of Health came down with this ban on indoor cigarette smoking, it did not cover every single location, because you could legitimately have, let's say, City of Columbus bar on one side of the street and Liberty Township literally straight across the street, on 50 feet across the street on the other side. So where I made a big pivot personally and professionally was as soon as we lost the smoking ban. Ironically, Obama got voted in, so they knew what they were doing because they knew there was going to be a lot of people coming to the polls, right, to vote for the president. There was this inequity, this business inequity that you just brought up. And as soon as we lost and I got licked my wounds, I now went on a crusade to get non-smoking all over the state of Ohio so that you couldn't have this inequity of mom and pop's bar on one side not smoking and Andy's bar on the other side of the street is able to smoke. So that was an interesting pivot. But from a company perspective, it was devastating. Cigarette gross revenue to Shaffer Entertainment 16 years ago represented about 35% of our gross revenue and represented anywhere from 12 to 14 jobs.
Yes.
And we only had 54 people total. So proportionately losing 35% of your sales overnight, and then unfortunately having to lay a preponderance of your workforce off, we had to make a massive change.
Yes.
We had to make a massive change. And as you and I discussed, I decided that the best interest of the company was not to be so overly reliant on alcohol and tobacco locations, which were obviously bars and restaurants. So that's when we decided to make a right-hand turn. We still took care of our bar and tavern, bowling alley customers, but we made a decision to become less reliant on that part of the industry and got much more diversified into movie cinemas, roller rinks, and the bowling centers, and creating redemption counters and redemption centers and carrying all that inventory and all those toys and candies and things that your kids and your grandkids like to play. That's what we started stocking, inventorying, and we help. I think we helped save the bowling industry, to be honest with you. The bowling industry was on its ass, and they were old school. They weren't changing. They weren't reinventing themselves.
The bowling alley and the roller rink are both almost obsolete at this point, right? Which, and I think post-pandemic, we need those kinds of businesses to come back for our kids.
And they're all family. Most of them are family businesses.
Right.
Almost all of them. So
absolutely.
So we restructured Shaffer, had to have a huge layoff, lost a lot of revenue. That we would take all that revenue. We always reinvested our revenue. We always kept our employees in clean cars. Wheels weren't falling off. We got new uniforms every single year. We were able to give people raises, and all that good stuff went away. And so again, there's people that have worked for us actually longer than I've been there. There's still guys there, proudly, and they're forever etched in my heart.
That's amazing. So you've got guys working for the company that have been there that outlived your existence at the company. They
came in the fall of '88, right? Fantastic. They came in actually, and they were working for coin companies ahead of that.
Right.
So there's some guys that are in their mid-60s that have been fixing jukeboxes and video games for probably 40, 50 years.
Fantastic. I think you guys have built a great business in town. Almost 100 years running is phenomenal when you think about, I think the statistic is 74% of businesses fail in the first 2 years, which is absurd. And one of our goals in Clicks and Bricks is to help, reduce that number, even if it's 1%. So, great job on keeping it together and running through this now. And through this time, obviously 34% of your revenue in a day is a huge hit, right? And laying people off and all those things. So, you had to have some moments of scratching your head where Grandpa said, "Oh, I'm in the wrong business." Mm-hmm. Maybe you're saying that to yourself now. Shit, am I in the wrong business, right? So, did you have any tips or tricks on how did you, mentally and physically get through this? A 34% reduction in revenue. If you're not in business, that is, I think most companies at that point would file bankruptcy, right? They'd be like, okay, we're going to be done. We're walking away from this. What were some of the tricks that you had to help you and your family even, pull up your pants and go in and say, hey, we're going to turn this around?
Great question. Really, it gets down to the core, I think, of the family business owner. And I can only speak for myself, but I'm in a phenomenal organization in Central Ohio of all family business owners from all kinds of incredible occupations. And the one common denominator I think that an owner in a family business has is you wake up every single day trying to figure out, and you're motivated by the thought of, how do I get this to the next generation? So if there's one form of gasoline that I kept putting into my tank. And I was going through a divorce at that exact same time. So it was, there was meteorites flying at the same time, right? Not only are we losing 35% of our company, but I was going through a divorce, which was okay. Yeah, I just kept thinking about, I had an 8-year-old and a 2-year-old at the time. And I just kept thinking to myself, how can I set this thing up to survive in case they want to get into this business later on? I'm never going to push these guys into it. Right. So,
I'm pushing my daughter into my business. 100%.
How'd that go?
Well, she's 14 and we own a boxing school and she's there almost every day. So we'll see. Cool. I'm pushing. Well, I tell her she can quit anytime she wants, but I think she knows that would make me sad. But so it is what it is.
And, you asked me earlier about going off and working somewhere else before I came back to Shaffer. Well, my whole episode in my life at Elon College was a whole new whiteboard. Right. And that's where I learned how to plow the field, plant the seed, water it, and come back to it. So that experience at Elon, where I didn't know anybody, I had to prove myself every single day, not just to myself, but to 3,200 Southerners down there who had never met a kid from Columbus, Ohio before, obviously I think paid huge dividends when we had to go through this shedding of the skin process, as I call it. Snakes shed skin, and that's how I was looking at this cigarette situation. But again, I think it's just the drive. It's just internal drive. I've been in athletics my entire life. I've been captains of all of my sports. I was a founding father of fraternity. I guess I would classify myself as an alpha. I like to have my hands on the wheel. I don't like to be in the shotgun, and God forbid I'm in the back seat. If I'm in the back seat, I won't last very long. So nobody likes to fail. And, the only other, and it's not a tip or a trick, but I'm sure anybody can relate to this. You never want to be that quarterback in the Super Bowl at the end of the game that throws an interception to lose the game. Right? You want to be the guy that's throwing like Tom Brady, whoever you want to relate to, but you want to be that quarterback that's throwing it to win the game, not lose the game.
Absolutely.
So it's fight or flight. It's fight or flight. It's either you suck it up and you figure it out. And so that whole experience that I got to go through with my managers and just an incredible core group of employees in Columbus as well as Indianapolis, we probably would not have made it post-pandemic if I hadn't gone through that whole cigarette drill 16 years previous. I can honestly tell you and your listeners that. Everybody.
So that was stacking, right? That was skill stacking at that point. You gained skills at one generation or one hurdle. You're like, okay, I've got these skills, and now you hold on to those. You don't throw them away, and you come to the next challenge in life, and you've got all the skills that you learned from the first one, and now. Yeah, you might learn some new skills to come through this one too, but that other, dip helped you get through this one as well.
That losing that gross revenue and losing those fine people that we had to back then didn't make it any easier coming out of the pandemic, but it gave me a roadmap.
Right, fantastic. And I think if you boil everything you said down to, and I want to go back to what your dad did on the consolidation, because I think that's brilliant. And I think there's a lot of business owners out there today that can do something similar in a lot of different fields. But on your tip or trick, I think it all boils down to your super why, right? And as a business owner, at some point, you don't have to make this decision today. Am I just doing this for me, right? Is this just a business that I like to run? Or am I building some kind of legacy, right? That I want to pass down. Is this what I've been known for? If people are going to remember me in 100 years from now, is this what I want to be known for? Or am I just doing this business? Am I buying myself a job, or am I just getting through? Like, it really depends. And everybody's got to make those decisions on their own. I have business ventures that I kick up because I want to try something new. I just want to taste and say, hey, is this something I might like? With no real intent on keeping it running forever, just to see, hey, I want to take this challenge, right? Can I get this off its feet? Maybe sell it, maybe shut it down. Who knows? But then there's other things that I do, like my boxing school is probably going to be one of my legacies, right? That outlives me, because I'm training these kids, and they're going to go on to whatever they end up doing. Hopefully, the Olympics and professional boxing and all those things. So it's really important whenever you're in business to know, one, your why. I think that's what helps you through the really hard times, but then two, is this just your job right now, or is this your legacy? And then I think it's really important that people make that determination whenever they're running a business, because if it's your legacy, you're going to put a lot more effort into it than if it's just your job, right? And I think that's the stuff that's really going to shine long term. This is a legacy because it came from your father and your grandfather, and you want the opportunity for your
right?
and you want the opportunity for your kids to enjoy kind of the lifestyle and things that you might have gotten to enjoy. And be hardened by some of the challenges, because we're going to have another pandemic, right? We're going to have another law change. We're going to have more things come at us. Learning how to deal with those things is important, and I think knowing how to deal with those things ends up making you a happy person, right? Because they're going to happen, and if you don't know how to deal with them, then you're just in a whole lot of trouble. So the other thing I want to talk about is when your father did, what he did was consolidate an industry in a small market. Right now I see this happening a lot with independent electricians, right? So you've got a lot of independent electricians out in the marketplace. They're making, an average guy, he's one person shop, makes, $130,000, $140,000 a year in revenue. A 5-6 person shop, maybe they're $1 million in revenue. And I think I've seen a lot of electricians consolidate these small electrical shops in suburban towns and a lot of cities around the country. And I think it's a great way to grow. So if you see that you've got a lot of competition in your local marketplace, talk to your bank about a consolidation effort of that particular industry, because I think you might be surprised at how willing the bank is to see, hey, there's 4 owners and they're all struggling. We can take them all out and make one really good brand that's going to scale and help everybody. Because when you consolidate like that, you help all the customers, you help the managers, you help all the employees, you get rid of all the dead weight. All your economies of scale come into play in a tremendous way, right? So
I think you nailed it. I think that's the opportunity that my dad saw back in '88. And again,
it's
huge. It was totally taboo. It was totally taboo and sacrilegious for anybody in the distribution world
right.
to own street routes. It was almost forbid.
Right.
But you're right.
I live by 2 basic rules. If it's not going to kill me, it's not going to put me in jail. I can try it, at least. I might fail. But, those are my 2 catalysts on, hey, I can try this. So if it's taboo, you don't need permission. You can do it anyway, right? But, yeah, I think he saw a brilliant opportunity, executed on it. But he had to leave his industry, right, to do this. Mm-hmm. And then committing yourself to the goal, right? I mean, great-grandpa sold all this stuff, sold his pharmacy to buy jukeboxes. A lot of people would have called him crazy in the 20s, right?
I'm sure they did.
Absolutely. So, if you're in love with it, you think it's the right idea, go all in. It's not going to kill you, and you're not going to go to jail. It'll be okay, right? Jumps and nets will appear. So, awesome. Thank you for the stories. I very much appreciate it. So, on Clicks and Bricks, we talk about business and technology. The coin op industry, the vending industry, all of those things, for probably 80 years, didn't see a whole lot of technology change, right? It was very mechanical, drop the coin, flips the lever, you get your stuff out, right? Very wheel and mouse kind of activities. But the past 20 years, technology has been really just dumping into this industry. And I think the next 10, 20 years is going to be pretty wild with vending robots inside dorm rooms and the airports. You're starting to see these froyo machines popping up that are making soft serve ice cream in real time. Can you tell us a little bit about how you see the future of this industry, and do you have a jukebox in mind that's going to take Shaffer to the next level?
Yeah, the technology has really made a big difference for us in the last 10 years. You and I talked about this in our prelim, is Ken, probably about 75% of our service calls on the streets in Indy, Columbus, or Detroit are almost based around jam quarters, jam dollar bills, or something revolving hard currency. And so the advent of obviously the smartphone has had an incredibly positive impact on our industry. So skipping way forward now, as a consumer, you go out to the bars or you go out to any of these bowling centers where we might have games. Almost in every case now, For example, on Touch Tunes, the greatest thing those guys did years and years ago was they invented the phone app that goes with the jukebox, just like a Starbucks app. You load your digital wallet up, and you can go to your favorite pub, and you can play your music. And the underlying value to that as a consumer is you don't have to stand in front of the jukebox anymore and lose your seat at the bar.
Right.
So you and your buddies can be out on the patio having a lager while the sun's going down, or with your wife having a glass of wine, and you guys can play whatever music is loaded up onto the app. The currency is slowly dissipating in our world,
right.
in our industry, and just like what COVID has done for ordering food, it's doing the same kind of thing, I believe, in our industry. It's accelerating cashless, coinless entertainment right now. So the benefit is not just the health side of it, whichever
right.
side of the fence scientifically you want to sit on, but it drastically reduces service calls, drastically reduces downtime, and a lot of times too, we can watch these devices of ours, this equipment of ours, in real time. So that's just mind blowing, man. To be
right.
able to remotely diagnose a jukebox, or remotely diagnose a golden tee, because it saves us, the guy that owns the equipment and has to pay for the parts, it saves us an inordinate amount of time and money. If I know that golden tee 10 miles away from us has a bad hard drive or a bad power supply, right? Now
right.
my guy can get that hard drive, he can get that power supply loaded up, and so when he hits the location. So that's one of the things that we're so proud of as a company is our average downtime is less than 60 minutes.
Oh, really? For a machine? That's impressive.
Yeah, we have we've put a premium for the last 15 years post cigarette ban on doing everything in our power to be able to reduce the amount of service calls, which increases the amount of revenue for us, increases revenue for our customers, and increases the enjoyment for their customers.
Right, and it saves you money on the flip side, right? So that's a double.
Saves everybody money.
Like
right.
Anytime you can increase revenue and reduce costs at the same time, you are absolutely winning. So yeah, that's the right place to be really narrowing in on that. So obviously entertainment has changed drastically, not just in the year and a half, but it's been changing pretty quickly over the last 20 years. Last year and a half with COVID has really put a catalyst on no more movie theaters, things like that, movies being released directly to the home. There's never been more games on the telephone that is just in everybody's pocket, right? So, and I have these worries, owning a traditional brick and mortar gym. You are, entertainment inside brick and mortar establishments all over the country. Do you have any worries about, the trend of staying at home, or are you confident in mankind's need for socialization long term, that your machines will continue to entertain and help people grow?
Well, that's a phenomenal question, and I think if we all hadn't gone through a pandemic, we wouldn't know how to answer it, right?
Yes.
I can only speak directly to the fact that when we started to see the state of Ohio reopen itself back in May of last year, Indiana, that's what was so unique, having three different what we call routes in 3 different cities in 3 different states. I use the nickname that we're all on different treadmills. So Ohio was in a reopening phase based on our circumstances much more quickly than Indianapolis was. The mayor of Indianapolis pretty much had Indianapolis completely shut down for much, much longer than we did in the state of Ohio. And then another treadmill was Detroit, and the governor of Michigan had that entire state completely locked down for quite a long time. So it was an interesting juggling of balls to figure out who's going to reopen sooner than the other. But what we learned is, and the lessons that we learned in Ohio was, I could turn around and tell my general manager over in Indianapolis, hey, in 2 months, hopefully when you guys get completely wide open, this is what you can expect. So
right.
we were able to anticipate things in the other 2 states and cities that we didn't in Columbus. But you know what, man, to answer your question, and I'll clam it up, but I mean, human beings are social. Human beings want to be around one another. I saw an unbelievable outpouring of people on social media when we were going through this, not just for us, but for our customers, the bar owners, the bowling proprietors that were completely shut down. And it almost turned into a wave of empathy, but also a desire to be around people, man.
Right.
I mean, everybody spends so much time behind screens and computers that I think everybody realized through this pandemic of being cooped up so long, they really miss seeing people. They really miss interacting with somebody face to face. They really miss the energy, right? And so I do have a lot of optimism. Ohio, we had an incredible, like I said, we had a really, really good 2021 because Ohio stayed pretty open.
Right.
We were one of the first states to kind of start reopening themselves again back in May last year. So Indianapolis was slower. And
Ohio and Indianapolis both have some. Those the people, the populations are growing, correct, in both cities.
Columbus is the largest demographic city in the state of Ohio, and I know for a fact Indianapolis is the largest, and I think ironically they're both state capitals,
right?
And so there's a lot of young people moving and living in those two cities. Detroit, unfortunately, is probably not a
right.
expanding population, right?
Right, but the other two are at least my limited vision of the globe. Is that a lot of people from California are leaving California, and a lot of cities are, because both those cities I think have incentives to move for work at home jobs, right? They'll actually pay you to move to that city if you're going to move and bring your California pay to Ohio and work, and if you've got a stay at home work or work from home job, which I think is phenomenal. So I could tell you that there's not too many memories that I have in life that I find that I hold closer to my heart than me and my wife before we were married, sitting at the bar playing mega touch screens, right? Just playing those games and that stuff. So I agree that the social aspect of that is huge, right? And these games at places that people can sit and, they're almost like micro little entertainment hubs that you can go to and really enjoy yourself. And, we go to, in Missouri, we got this place called Branson, Missouri, and we go there.
I know Branson.
Yeah, so we, they've got the walls that you're talking about, the redemption walls, and my daughter loves them. My son, he doesn't really care very much, but my daughter has a blast. So, that's got to feel really good, providing services that help. I mean, I guess you're helping people, but you're helping families be together and helping families create memories with those redemption walls.
I feel that way, and the biggest driver, in my opinion, specifically in Indianapolis and Columbus, that acts as an accelerant, is we've got thousands of people that play in our organized soft tip electronic dart leagues and our pool leagues.
Yeah. Okay.
And those men and women. I predicted it the minute we were starting to crawl out of this pandemic. I said the league players are going to be the ones that are going to be the ones to roar coming out of the gates to get back and get into those bars and throw darts with each
Absolutely.
other, interact with each other, high five with each other, even if you got masks on.
Yep.
So
they don't care. Yes, absolutely.
But the league players, I said all along,
was
going to be kind of the gasoline that was going to get us back up and running again. And I think that's why our Columbus route and our Indianapolis route just took off like a SpaceX rocket, because we had all these league people that have been cooped up that all, they're used to going out on Tuesday nights and seeing one another, and
right.
So I think that was a big factor. So
right.
not all coin operators, in fact, very few successfully operate pool leagues and electronic soft tip dart leagues. But
right.
that was probably one of the secret sauces for us to get people out.
And I think the tip there on adversity and dealing with hard times, if you really know your client, right? And in this case, this isn't even your direct client. This is an indirect client, the league, right? The people playing, because your client is the store that your machine's in, correct? Not the end user, technically. So, but knowing the downstream of who your client is and who's using your product is huge. And you can start, if you really narrow down on that, you can find a lot of comfort in knowing your customer really well as you're coming out of pandemic. If you know Dart League people they are fanatical about their dart leagues, right?
Oh,
They're
yeah.
at the bar, they're drinking
Yeah.
their beer, they're throwing their darts, and they have to have that competitive nature. So I think billiards rooms are going to be popular for a long time to come, right? Because we've had this year and a half of weirdness, and as we're coming back out, these social gathering places I think will be a good business for a very long time. I think business owners are going to have to get creative on having more stuff. Like, I love the axe throwing guys, I like the pool table guys, like all of that stuff. I think, we'll have to get more creative, and I think the strip mall owners are going to have to be a little more liberal on letting people in their doors. But I think the future is, filled with all kinds of fun, weird stuff that we're going to get to play with. And, Andy with Shaffer Entertainment is going to be probably on the cusp of that, making sure that we have the fun games and things to play, building our families together and all that fun stuff. So I thank you for everything you do, Andy.
Thank you. It's, you nailed it. I swear we must be cut from the same cloth, because everything you've said today has been dead on. We do get, as a family, and I think as all of our employees do get a real sense of fulfillment that we've helped turn some other people on. And
right.
When families were just starting to go out after the pandemic, I can't tell you how many guys were taking pictures of the logos, the stickers and the logos on all of our machines, because they were just like, oh my God, my family, my daughter is having the greatest time of her life right now because she's been cooped up for 12 months. We're turning people on. We're turning
Absolutely.
people on, and it's inexpensive entertainment. But the residual is you've got memories with your kids that you're always going to be able to remember. That you guys as a family went out and bowled a couple games together, and you won a bunch of prizes and ate hot dogs or something while you were there. So we're into memory making. We love to make memories, and I'm not Walt Disney, but we give opportunities for people. We give them outlets to go out when they need it, and we're there for them. So.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. That's it for today's show, folks. Thank you for joining us again. My name is Ken. That's all we have time for today, guys. Thank you for coming, and get to work.